So since the most likely scenario is that we're going to be in a weak La Nina, it's good to take a look at the average snowfall patterns we typically see during those years, and we clearly see, as I've been showing in my previous videos, much of the northern United States experiences much more snowfall than usual, where the average anomaly ranges anywhere between 4 to 12 inches in many of these areas, and I wouldn't be surprised that we even see a stronger anomaly than that anomaly, because we have to take into account some of those La Nina years, including years that might have been below average due to several different other factors outside of weak La Nina. So there's very well that possibility that we could see potentially more than the 4 to 12 inch range when it comes to average snowfall, or a little bit less than that, but most likely you should see more snowfall than usual in the northern Midwest and the Pacific Northwest, which I believe will play a major part in contributing to how many days of snow cover you receive this winter. So what I'm defining as snow cover in this video is whether there or not there's a snow depth that's at least above 1 inch, as that's simply the range that that's used to really determine if there's at least a decent amount of snow cover to where the snow is covering the ground. And I'm sure many of you guys would like to see that all winter. You definitely don't want to see just dead grass and just dead vegetation everywhere. I'm sure you want to see potentially a white Christmas or just a white winter in general, and I believe that the higher snowfall totals you typically see during weak La Ninas in general will contribute to that. So you should see more snow days with snow cover than usual for much of the northern Midwest and the Pacific Northwest. Now, a little bit further eastward towards the northeast, we see that the snowfall anomalies tend to range a little bit close to average, more simply around the mid-Atlantic cities like New York City and Philadelphia. But we do see in the interior northeast, especially in the higher elevations and bordering the Great Lakes, we see that the snowfall anomaly is a little bit higher than normal. So I do believe also in that area, the days that you should receive snow cover should be a little bit higher than normal. Now, in terms of the area where I believe that you're going to see less days of snow cover, it's more so right around the southern Rocky Mountain ranges, which includes Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and the western Midwest. That's where the snowfall anomalies are typically lower than normal during weak La Nina years, and pretty much the entirety of the southern United States in general. While the snowfall anomaly isn't very strong, or it's nearly non-existent in a lot of these areas in the southern United States, I believe that since typically during a La Nina in general, it's warmer than usual for much of the southern United States, that makes it less likely you could receive any sort of snow cover at all that goes past at least within 1 day, or at least a snow depth that's above 1 inch in a lot of these areas. As in any given year for much of the southeast, it's very rare for a snowstorm that produces more than 1 inch of snow to occur. And I believe that since the winter is expected to be warmer than normal thanks to weak La Nina, I think that it's less likely you're going to receive snow cover in the southern United States. But we're going to take a look at other factors before we can really jump to that conclusion, because of course there are other things we need to take into consideration outside of weak La Nina, which I'll show you right now. So snowfall isn't the only thing that will determine how many days of snow cover you receive in the winter. Temperatures also play a big role, because the warmer the temperature, the less likely the snow cover is going to stay for a more prolonged period, because of course the snowfall would melt if the temperature is a bit too warm. But we see that might not be a problem for much of the northern Midwest as well as Pacific Northwest, where the temperature anomalies typically during weak La Nina years and range anywhere between 3 to 4 degrees below the long-term average. So I believe that will also contribute to you guys having more days of snow cover. And we see the temperature anomaly isn't very strong in the southwestern United States, while it is leaning towards a slightly colder than normal conditions average, which I do believe could help maybe contribute a little bit to extending your snow cover period in those areas. I don't believe that the anomaly is very strong to where I'd confidently say that this will play a major part in determining, like, in prolonging the amount of snow cover you receive in some of these areas, because the anomaly isn't very strong. It's only around 1 degree below average, and it could be offset by another factor that might bring warmer than normal conditions in the southwestern United States. So I don't believe that this anomaly will be strong enough to necessarily make a big change when it comes to the average amount of snow cover you receive in these areas, or the average amount of days, I should say. Now, for the eastern United States, we see temperature anomalies mainly hover around average, with a slight area where it is slightly above average during weak La Nina winters in the southeast. So I do believe that while the anomaly isn't very strong in this area, that 1 degree anomaly could be enough to take away the possibility of snow cover in the southeastern portion of the United States, especially when we're talking about an anomaly that's this far south into the southeast. So I do believe it's unlikely that this area will receive snow cover this winter, which might be unfortunate for those wanting potentially some snow in the southeast this winter. It could maybe happen in the cities further northward, like Charlotte and Atlanta, but it's still going to be fairly rare, I'll say, if it were to happen. Of course, this is a very long-term forecast, and we've seen even warmer winter pattern produce snowfall at times, because the winter is so large. There's so many weeks to where even if it's above average, let's say for 9 weeks, there could be that 10th week that's gonna bring a cold spell that'll bring more snowfall than what you typically expect. So this isn't this isn't necessarily just the end-all be-all forecast for the southeast when it comes to receiving snow cover, but it is a little bit less likely thanks to the warmer temperatures you typically see during weak La Nina years, as well as the drier than normal conditions. Another thing I want to point out is the Pacific North American oscillation pattern, which plays a big role in determining whether or not you receive colder and snowier than normal conditions in your area of the United States, or warmer and drier than normal conditions. So if we were to take a look at the forecast pattern, we see that it's going to hover right around the neutral phase. That first week of December, though, or first 2 weeks of December, I should say, we could be in the slight negative phase. So that could favor a little bit more snowstorms than usual, more specifically in the Pacific Northwest. And combined with the fact that we're going to be in a weak La Nina, I do expect this week to potentially bring a little bit more snowfall, which of course I believe will contribute to prolonging the amount of days you receive snow cover in the Pacific Northwest. Now, after the first 2 weeks of December, we see that it mainly remains around neutral phase. Of course, this is a very long-term forecast, so we're definitely bound to see we could see significant changes when it comes to whether or not we're going to be in a positive PNA or negative PNA pattern by the time we approach the winter months. So definitely keep tabs on this over the next few months. But if it were to be in the negative phase, that would promote more colder and snowy than normal conditions in the western United States, while it should be warmer and drier in the eastern United States. Right now, it's looking like it's going to hover around neutral phase. So I think that you'll get a combination of a little bit of both, at least for the first month or two of the winter time, where the eastern United States will have their chance at colder than normal conditions, as well as snowier than normal conditions, while the western United States will also have its possibility as of right now. But the first 2 weeks of December, that's when I expect the snowier conditions to happen in the Pacific Northwest, and that could contribute to prolonging your snowfall period, especially since this brings snowfall in the early part of the winter time frame. And of course, the more snowfall there is early on, that typically cools down the temperature in general over the next few weeks, thanks to that snow cover existing. So this could help contribute to you guys receiving a more prolonged period of snow cover in the Pacific Northwest, while it could be a little bit drier and warmer than normal for the eastern United States. Another thing I want to point out is the drought monitor, and as you can clearly see, there is a slight drought going on right around the southern Midwest, as well as the northern portions of the Midwest. But we see that the drought conditions aren't necessarily very severe. There are some areas, but I wouldn't say that this could play a major role, especially in the Pacific Northwest, since I do believe a weak La Nina will eventually take away this drought, because it's not uncommon for the Pacific Northwest to enter a drought coming off the summer months, because typically in the western United States it's dry pretty much all summer long. So I do believe that once we get into the more wet season, which is winter time, combining that with a weak La Nina, we should see this drought go away, which in return should lead to more days of snow cover in a lot of these areas, where you could receive snow cover for over 85 days this winter, which for a lot of areas it's average, but for some areas I do expect the 85 range would be a little bit further southward, so you should see more days of snow cover than usual. And for the southern United States, I only think the the weak La Nina will contribute to the conditions still being drier than normal in a lot of these areas. So of course the chance of snow cover is a little bit more limited in the southern United States this winter compared to other winters. So here are the amount of days you should see snow cover in the United States this winter. So right around the Rocky Mountain ranges, this includes states like Montana, the higher elevations of Wyoming, Colorado, Idaho, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. This is where you should have over 85 days of snow cover this winter, which if you think about it, that's almost 80 to 90% of the winter time frame, which is quite a lot of days you should receive snow cover, which I think will make it likely that the white Christmas in a lot of these areas will be there, and pretty much throughout the winter you should see snow cover. So for those hoping for snow, especially skiers and snowboarders, I think that this year specifically should be very good for that. By the way, this 85-day threshold is a little bit southward than average, and the reason why I did that is because I do believe it will be colder than normal, so you should see more days of snow staying on the surface without melting, as well as the fact that it should be snowier in a lot of these areas, which is the reason why I'll put the 85-day threshold a little bit further southward this winter. So places like Milwaukee, where you don't typically receive over 85 days of snow cover this winter, I do believe that it will be the case this winter, thanks to the colder than normal conditions expected for Milwaukee this winter, and even areas further southward, like almost at Albany, where you should expect over 85 days of snowfall. So definitely keep that in mind for much of the northern United States. And now, just south of that, this is where you should expect snow cover. Days of snow cover that ranges anywhere between 55 and 85 days, which is more than usual in some areas, such as Chicago, where you typically receive more so around 40 days of snow cover. This year, I'm expecting anywhere between 55 and 85, thanks to the fact that it's going to be colder than normal in Chicago and bring more snowfall than usual potentially. This includes Detroit as well. This pretty much borders Des Moines, Iowa as well. This includes Omaha, and this even includes Boston, which is a little bit more than what you days than what you typically see in Boston. Just south of that, I expect 40 to 55 days of snow cover for a lot of these areas. That's around the average amount, as I do believe this is the portion where you should receive around the average amount of days of snow cover in these areas, because I do believe while it will be colder than normal and snowier than normal in the northern United States, I believe that there will be times where the warmer and drier than normal conditions that would be associated with a weak La Nina in the southern United States could move a little bit further northward, which I believe will almost balance out the fact that there could be times where it's going to be colder and snowier than normal, which is the reason why in the 40 to 55 and even the 28 to 40 day threshold, it's around average. That's around the average amount of snow cover days you should see. This includes cities like New York City and Philadelphia, where you should receive anywhere between 28 and 40 days of snow cover, which is around average for those areas. And then just south of that, this is where you should expect 20 to 28 days of snow cover, around average as well. And then just south of that, 7 to 20 days of snow cover. This includes the Delmarva Peninsula, Richmond, Virginia, southern Missouri, and even southern Kansas. And in some areas such as in the Panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma, this is a little bit further northward this winter, which means that in places like Oklahoma, the Panhandle of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Tennessee, and North Carolina, these areas, it is expected you're going to receive less days of snow cover than usual, thanks to the fact that it's going to be warmer. So in those areas, I'm only expecting 1 to 7 days of snowfall, and this 6, which is a lot further northward this winter thanks to a weak La Niña. So places like Dallas, Atlanta, and even Charlotte, unfortunately, you might not receive any days of snow cover this winter thanks to a warmer winter this season. So there's my days of snow cover forecast for the winter of 2024 and 2025. If you want even more in detail forecasts regarding how many days of snow cover you should see this winter, just make sure to comment down below your location, and I'll make sure to give you guys a more in detail outlook on how many days of snow cover you should see this winter. So make sure to comment down below if you're interested. But that's it for now, guys, and I'll thank you guys for watching.